Morning student. Today we're going to discuss on the chapter of political science 9th standard, that is democracy in contemporary world. The topic of discussions will be on the following, that is the growth and development of democracy in various parts of the world, the story of Chile and the sacrifices the president of Chile, Salvador Allende, has made during the democratic rule in Chile, and the military coup of 1973 and downfall of the democracy and death of Allende. So now begin with the story of development of democracy in the world order. We will read in this chapter how democracy has expanded during the last 100 years to more and more countries in the world. More than half of the independent countries in the world today are democratic type of government. The expansion of democracy has not been smooth and straight everywhere. It has been with several ups and downs in different countries. It still remains an unstable and uncertain achievements. This chapter mainly deals with the different stories on the making and unmaking of democracy from different parts of the world. These stories are meant to give a sense of what it means to experience democracy and the absence of democracy. The spread of democracy in different parts of the world we'll read, and how in the two tales of democracy, that is the story of Chile and the story of Poland, we will read. Today only we will read about the story of Chile and about the president of Chile, Salvador Allende, and his sacrifices. That will be the study matter of today. Now we will read about who was Salvador Allende and how Salvador Allende has been overthrown by the military coup. Salvador Allende was the president of Chile, a country in South America. He was a leader elected by the people, and he was the founder leader of the Socialist Party of Chile and led the Popular Unity Coalition to victory in the presidential election of 1970. So after being elected as a president, Allende had taken several policy decisions to help the poor and the workers. His policy decisions are favorable for the poor people. So this include the policy decisions of Allende, like reform to the educational system, free milk for children, and redistribution of land to the landless farmers. So these are the policy reforms given by Allende which are for the benefit of the poor people. He was opposed to foreign companies taking away natural resources like copper from the country. For those policy reforms, the certain groups of people were very angry with Allende. They are the landlords, the rich, and the church, who are very privileged section of the society. Some other political leaders in Chile also oppose his government. So, as the people were unhappy with the rule of Salvador Allende, they tried to change the rule of Salvador Allende and to bring military rule in Chile. So the military coup of 1973 and the death or end of Salvador Allende. So what happened in the military coup of 1973? Today we're going to read. So on the morning of 11 September 1973, the military took over the seaport. The defense minister was arrested by the military. When he arrived at his office, the military commanders asked the president to resign. But when Allende refused to resign or leave the country, but when realizing the danger to the country and to his life, he addressed the people on the radio. The part which I have read with the starting of the chapter. Then the military surrounded the President House and started bombing it. President Allende died in the military attack. So this was the sacrifice he was talking about in his last speech that I have told you with the beginning of the chapter. So our government elected by people was overthrown by the military through conspiracy and violence. So what took place in Chile on 11 September 1973 was a military coup. So what is coup? What is military coup? It is a sudden attack or overthrow of a government illegally. It may be violent in nature or may not be. So, a military coup that has taken place on 11 September 1973, which attacked the Allende and the democratic government of Chile. And the military coup was led by General Augusto Pinochet, an army general who led the coup. The government of the United States of America was unhappy with Allende's rule and is known to have supported and funded activities that led to the coup. Pinochet became the president of the country and ruled for the next 17 years. So from a government that was elected by the people, the power shifted to the military officers. They could do as they wish and no one could question them. Thus, a military dictatorship was established in Chile with the end of democratic rule of Allende. So, the military dictatorship that came into being in Chile with the military general Allende and those who wanted a democracy to be restored. This include General Alberto Bachelet of the Chilean Air Force and many others who refused to join the coup. They have been tortured and put into prison by Pinochet. So more than 3,000 people were killed by the military and many more were reported missing. No one knows what had happened to them. So our government elected by the people has been overthrown by the military through conspiracy and violence and sudden attack with the military coup. So Allende's rule came to an end and the military dictatorship has been established in Chile by Augusto Pinochet. So we have read about how in Chile democratic government, the people's government had been overthrown by a military dictatorship with the conspiracy and violence and sudden attack with military coup. Allende, who is doing a lot for the country, thinking about the poor people, as most of the people who belong to the landed aristocracy, charge, and the privileged section of the society has opposed his rule, because those policy decisions were against their will and wishes. So Allende had to pay a cost for that, and the cost has been given by Allende with the death of Allende and the end of democratic rule in Chile and the establishment of dictatorship by the military coup led by Augusto Pinochet. So we have read the story of Chile up to the establishment of military dictatorship. Now, how again the restoration of democracy being done in Chile, that we're going to read in our next class. Thanking you